So when you're a sign language missionary, you get different books, different videos, and that kind of thing to help you learn. But the best thing is just to jump in. I started my gospel sign language by interpreting church my first week in the mission. I mean, you just have to learn as you go. But you are given the tools that you need. And for me, at least, I got an hour every day to continue to learn, and I would watch and I would interpret what my companion was saying all the time. And we made it a rule most of the time to sign in our apartment because it just helped me. And my companions needed to learn it too. They needed to learn the easy stuff at least. So I would help them and teach them, and that helped me a lot. So finding deaf investigators was something that was really difficult. Really, what we had to do was everyone in our zone, all the missionaries, were just on the lookout for anyone signing. And if they found anyone, they would tell us where they saw them, because they couldn't communicate with them to see where they lived or if they were even interested. So they would tell us, and I would go find them. I would have to hunt them down, basically, is one way we found investigators. Another way is that we would, of course, be in contact with the members, the deaf members, and say, are there any friends that you have that would be interested in joining the church? It was interesting because most of the time we would go hunt someone down, and a few times the deaf members in our ward were at a party at their house that we'd hunted them down. So they all knew each other, which was really interesting. But my favorite story of how we found a deaf investigator is my companion and I on Monday, so our P day, our day off, we're at Old Navy getting her a dress because she needed one. And she saw some deaf people signing in the checkout line to each other. And she's like, Sister Treadwell, we need to go talk to them right now. And I was like, no, they're busy, like, it's okay. She's like, no, we're talking to them right now. And she ran out of the store after them. And so I, of course, have to run after her. So we drop all of our stuff on the counter in the checkout line and run after them out of the store. And explain who we are, all this stuff. They didn't hear us coming or running up to them because they can't hear. So we just showed up behind them. So it wasn't creepy or anything that they knew we ran out of the store after them. But introduced ourselves, and they said, yeah, we'd love to learn more. We'd love to talk to you later. And so we told them where the church was and all this stuff because they didn't have phones because they were poor. And so we're like, okay, so hopefully they'll come to church on Sunday. Didn't come to church on Sunday. A few weeks later, we go to one of our deaf members' houses, and the two deaf people that we had talked to were in the garage fixing his car. And so and we saw them like out of the corner of our eye, and my companion gets up again and runs to the garage to talk to them. And she can't speak barely any sign language, so I have to run after her. And we started setting up lessons and had them at that member's house, and that was really the furthest I got with an investigator was with that family. And they were amazing. I don't know if they got baptized. I kind of doubt it because there was no sign language missionary after I got transferred. But it was really cool to find people by running out of an Old Navy. For me, it was a little bit different than other sign language missionaries, I think, just because I always had a companion that didn't know sign language. So I was usually the interpreter. So my companion would teach the lesson and I would interpret it, because it's really difficult to switch back and forth between the two languages. Just like it's kind of difficult to sign while I'm talking. But almost all of the people that I taught were Mexican. I had one, I don't know the sign, Guatemalan woman that I taught. See, it's hard. But I don't know, it was amazing to teach the gospel in sign language, because it's so much more simple. The apostles have said that this is one of the most simple teachings in the entire world. But putting it in sign language, it makes it so beautiful and simple and just perfect, because you can't explain huge, difficult concepts. You have to focus it in and make it's the easier it is to understand. Most deaf people don't have a advanced reading level. About third grade is all they have. And so I was teaching a man one time, and he was reading the scriptures, or he was trying to, and he got to a word, he got to the word atonement. And he didn't know what it meant. So I had to try to describe to him in sign what the atonement was, and tell him that the atonement was Christ dying for us and suffering for us so that we can have eternal life. Him taking upon himself the responsibilities and all of the sins of the world so that we can live with him again. And then he understood it. But this was a man that had been a member of the church almost all his life. And he was about 50 years old. And he didn't know what the atonement was. And that was amazing to see, just how these people were members of the church but had no knowledge of the gospel. And so I worked with a lot of the deaf members, not with a lot of investigators, because these people had never really had amazing interpreters in church. They didn't know the gospel at all. So I had a couple of baptisms that I participated in and taught people for on my mission. Not a lot, but I didn't have one normal baptismal service. I had one for a hearing little girl of deaf parents that I had to interpret, and her dad was doing the prayer, and he signed it wrong, and I was the interpreter. And my bishop and ward mission leader freaked out and started yelling at me like, "Did he say this? Are you sure?" No, he didn't say, "Okay, we need to redo it." He had to redo it 4 different times before his daughter finally was able to communicate with him what he was missing and exactly how he was doing it wrong. And his daughter was 8 years old. But I had that. I had a man who had where you have the hole in your throat because of cancer. He had that, and his dream was to be baptized, and we had to go through this whole thing of how can he be baptized, because if he gets water in that hole, then he's dead. So he had to go face forward while being baptized. We had to have 2 people in the font, one of them being a doctor. We had to take a lot of precautions for that one. But it was awesome because his wife, who didn't approve of him joining the church, actually, she didn't like it, but she was fine with it, stood up and gave a standing ovation when he was finally baptized, and he was okay, which was awesome. And then I had one. This is Woody. He was 6'5", 5 maybe. He was so tall. And the man that was baptizing him, his knees locked up while he was under the water. And so he had to drop him in the water, and he had to get up himself so he didn't drown. I had no normal baptisms at all. But it was amazing because even though none of them were normal, none of them went as planned, all of them were still amazing. And all of them had such a sweet spirit there. And all the people, no matter what went wrong, were still so glad that they went through with it. It didn't matter how many people showed up. I had one baptism where no one showed up, which was very sad. But it didn't matter who showed up. It didn't matter what went wrong. They were just so glad to make those covenants with the Lord. I taught a few crazy people, mentally diagnosed crazy, which was very interesting. I had one woman that forgot us as soon as we left and forgot everything we talked about as soon as we left, but our ward still wanted us to teach her, so we went over every week and taught her the exact same lesson. It's just, sometimes you gotta follow what the ward wants. But I served in an area with a lot of fun stories, but every mission will have fun stories. And every mission's going to have some crazy people that you teach and have some amazing people that you teach that want to get baptized the next day. I mean, it's all amazing.